Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, FPL Consult here. In today's video, we have the Game Week 7 players to buy and sell, where basically we take a look at the most popular transfers in and out of your FPL teams right now, and I share my opinions on them. So if you guys do enjoy this one, please do drop a like, please do subscribe as well, and let's get on with the video. So the first player I think I want to talk about is Bruno Fernandes. Now obviously at this point, he's gotten a red card. I don't want to go into too much in-depth discussion as to whether it was a red card or not. Some people think it was harsh, some people think it was deserved, but at the end of the day, what we have right now in front of us is Bruno Fernandes facing a potential 3-game ban. Now that is the case at this point in time in FPL. On the official FPL page, basically he's only predicted to come back in November. So with that being the case, I think Manchester United will potentially appeal this, so I'll keep a lookout for that and update you guys. But for the time being, if this 3-game ban is anything to go by, it just means that he will miss Aston Villa away, Brentford at home, and West Ham away. He will then come back, right, in game week 10 against Chelsea at home, in which case I don't think it's a must that we bring him in then. And then from game week 11 onwards, there's Leicester and 2 other good games after that as well. So I do think, like, if there's ever a time you want to reassess whether to bring Bruno Fernandes in or not, then I think game week 10 when he comes back would likely be the time horizon to do that. In terms of my own transfer plans, I did actually think that I wanted to bring Bruno Fernandes in from game week 8 onwards, but obviously after yesterday's events, I probably have to change my opinions on that. And I do think that because in my case I have Luis Diaz, I think like I need to look elsewhere in terms of replacements. So later on in today's video, I will also share a couple of replacements that I'm looking at in the midfield regions. But yeah, in terms of Bruno Fernandes, I think a couple of price drops are likely to come for him as well if they haven't already. He's at 8.2. By the time he comes back in November, he probably drops 8 million. That's kind of what I think will happen. But I do think if you have Bruno Fernandes now, it's a pretty straightforward sell, especially considering he's going to be missing for the next 3 games. Now looking at a player that is on the other end of the spectrum and did really well for Game Week 6, it is of course Cole Palmer, who scored 4 goals in the first half of the Game Week 6 game against Brighton. So truly incredible performance from him, and already 388 transfers in for him. Now I get the appeal with Cole Palmer. I think he's quite expensive, but looking at how good he's playing right now, he seems a bit irresistible. Now the thing I have with Cole Palmer that I have to hold my hands up and say is that I did not think that Chelsea were going to score that many goals against Brighton. The way that they crumbled in the first half, especially trying to play out from the back, I think a big part of that has to come down to Van Dijk not being in that squad and having a bit of a muscle injury, leading to them being so open at the back and just, you know, Cole Palmer and Nicholas Jackson having so much joy up front. So I think that was one of the main reasons why there were so many chances for Chelsea players. And to be fair, Cole Palmer could have scored even more in that game. So to walk away with almost, I think 26 points, I think Cole Palmer, incredible returns. I think what's important right now to consider is the fixtures moving forward for him. Now I know some people think that he is fixture proof, but there are a couple of difficult fixtures for him moving forward. Now, there's Nottingham Forest in Game Week 7 specifically, so that's okay. But in Game Week 8, it's Liverpool. In Game Week 9, it's Newcastle. After that, it's Manchester United away and Arsenal at home. So I think you can kind of look at this block of fixtures and think, alright, maybe Newcastle at home is not too difficult because that would be at Stamford Bridge, and you know, Newcastle usually struggle away from home. So maybe that specifically is not a very difficult fixture. And then Manchester United away, playing at Old Trafford does not really mean a thing for Manchester United at this point. It seems as if wherever they play, they just don't do that well. So I do think like Newcastle and Manchester United may be a fixture that you can still back Cole Palmer to kind of do well in. So it's really the Game Week 8 Liverpool away fixture and the Game Week 11 Arsenal at home fixture that I'll be thinking are tricky for him. Aside from that, I think the other 3 fixtures in the upcoming next 5 games are alright. Now, in terms of windows to bring Cole Palmer in, I think now is one of the main windows you bring him in. If it's Nottingham Forest at home in Game Week 7, I don't think you would do it in Game Week 8 because it's Liverpool away. And I don't think, no matter how good Cole Palmer is, that you bring in a player for Liverpool away. So it's either you do it now in Game Week 7, or I foresee you delaying it until Game Week 9. Now, for what it's worth, I've had a look at the other options within the premium bracket, especially because Bruno Fernandes is now red carded. So I think there will be a couple of FPL managers looking for replacements in that kind of a price bracket. but it is quite short in terms of options outside of Cole Palmer. Now, I'm going to rattle off a couple of names from the 7 million range upwards. So it starts with Chiesa. Now, I don't think we will go for Chiesa. He's at 7 million. But yeah, not guaranteed start, so he's not an option. Gordon, I think is alright at 7.3, but the thing is the fixtures don't really excite me. So above Gordon, there's Bowen at 7.4. Also, West Ham not doing very well. So as of now, we still haven't had any real options so far. Maddison at 7.5 is decent, it's interesting. But Brennan Johnson also exists. So I think there's kind of two Spurs assets that we can look at. But Brennan Johnson obviously cheaper, so I haven't mentioned him yet. Now, Jota, 7.5. Okay, but we wouldn't go there. Luis Diaz, 8 million. Odegaard, 8.2. Bruno Fernandes, obviously the one that we want to replace at 8.2 as well. And then it's Foden, De Bruyne, Son. Now, De Bruyne and Son both injured. Foden not getting consistent starts. And then it's Cole Palmer at 10.7 already, and Salah at 12.8. So out of all the names that I've rattled off, and these are essentially all the midfielders in the 7 million to all the way up till Salah kind of a range, there really isn't many standout options. So I can actually see why people will want to jump on Cole Palmer, despite him having a trickier run moving forward. He's just very consistent. He's not going to be involved in Europe, so he's going to get majority of the Premier League games. He's going to play a good chunk of that, and also on penalties. A lot to like with Cole Palmer. So I can see why people are jumping on him despite this fixture run. But yeah, what I would say is game week 7 is probably when I do it. If not, I think you delay it to game week 9. So let me know what you guys think of Cole Palmer. Are you transferring him in? Drop it in the comments down below. So continuing the conversation on Brennan Johnson that I wanted to speak about just now, he's at 6.4 million, 1.1% owned, so a very decent differential to have with the fixtures coming up, and we'll get to that in a bit, and already 42k transfers in. So Brennan Johnson is coming off 2 returns in game week 6 against Manchester United, so that's 1 goal and 1 assist for him. I think you look at the fixtures moving forward, it's Brighton away. Now you look at the way Brighton defended against Chelsea in game week 6, you think there's a fixture for the taking. And then it's West Ham at home, Crystal Palace, Aston Villa maybe a slightly trickier one, but they have been leaking a couple of goals as well. They haven't really kept many clean sheets this season. And then it's Ipswich at home as well. So you look at the price point of Brennan Johnson being at 6.4 million, he can actually be an entry into the Spurs attack for very, very cheap. In terms of performances so far, I think out of all the Spurs assets, Brennan Johnson has been one of the more standout options for me in terms of how good he's performing at. And also Maddison. So I don't want to discount the other Spurs assets that have been doing well, but Brennan Johnson and Maddison are the ones that stand out for me. The reason why I just like Brennan Johnson a little bit more than Maddison for the time being is because of the kind of chances that he's getting. I think in terms of an FPL asset, we would much rather him score a goal than get an assist. But I think Maddison's role in general, he can obviously score a couple of goals here and there, but his role is mainly to link up play, create the kind of chances for the forward players, and Brennan Johnson is really there to kind of finish the chances. So I look at the number of shots he's taken. Now this is a very interesting stat. He's taken 18 shots, 6 of them are on target, so a pretty decent enough kind of accuracy. But all these 18 shots have been in the box, so he gets very good chances. And his expected goal numbers are also very healthy in 2.42 in the first 6 game weeks. And that has obviously translated to 2 goals now. So I do like that he is not someone that is overperforming or underperforming. The numbers actually back that he is a good enough asset to be scoring in the rate that he's been doing. And yeah, big chances wise, 4 big chances in the first 6 game weeks. So I do like him as an option. I think he is a pretty stable enough pick as well. Looking at the fixtures moving forward, he is definitely in my considerations to replace Luis Diaz for my own team. But let me know what you think of Brennan Johnson, as well as the comparison with Maddison, who's slightly more expensive. Who would you prefer, and which one are you going for if you're even looking at Spurs assets? Let me know in the comments down below. Let's have a look at the next player. So next up, it's Eberechi Eze. Now, I know he has been a very frustrating FPL asset to own. I can empathize with a lot of the FPL managers out there. It is now 5 blanks in 6 appearances so far for him, and only 1 goal, and that came against Chelsea. So I do think it's time for us to have a look, take a step back, and just decide whether it's time to sell Eberechi Eze, like the 144k people who have already done so. So taking a step back, I think at the end of the day, Eberechi Eze has very good numbers still, and that has always been the case for the first couple of game weeks already. His expected goal numbers are 2.28, and actual goals only 1. So technically, he is still getting very decent chances. But the only thing I want to take a step back here and look at is basically at which point do we decide that the expected numbers, yes, that tells us one thing. But what we really want is the actual returns, and we're not realizing this at this point. And historically, has Ebrigi Eze been a player to kind of underperform his expected numbers? Generally, no. I've had a look at the numbers, and usually he goes quite close to the expected numbers that he's supposed to put up. But this season so far, it just has not been the case. Now, that could be down to multiple factors. And I also do think that the Crystal Palace attack don't look as potent as they did towards the end of last season. So I think, yes, Ebrigi Eze still has a lot to like in terms of him being a 90-minute asset, being on multiple set pieces. Penalties now obviously is a doubt because Mateta seems to be taking it off him, etc. So I think there's still a lot to like with Ebrigi Eze. But my question would then be, at which point do we decide it's time to let go, it's time to, sell him for another asset because he's not returning in the way that we want him to despite putting up good expected numbers. So I look at the fixtures now, it's Liverpool at home, and I can actually see why a lot of people are just taking the chance to sell Ebrigi Eze. Liverpool, definitely not an easy fixture by any means. But then in game week 8, it's Nottingham Forest away. After that, it's Spurs at home, and then it's Wolves away, Fulham at home. So if you don't sell him now in game week 7 against Liverpool, I'm not sure when else you would do it. I don't think I would sell Eze against Nottingham Forest. I think I'll be alright to keep Eze then. And then it's Spurs at home, yes, a bit difficult, but then it's Wolves away and Fulham at home after that. So I think the real window now to sell Ebrigi Eze is in game week 7. Aside from that, I don't think I'd be actually selling him later down the line. Now, in terms of replacements as well, at this price bracket is actually where there are a lot of good replacements. We just spoke about one in Brennan Johnson, but even further down the kind of cheaper midfield bracket, which we even speak about Dwight McNeil later on, also someone that people are speaking about. So I think in the cheaper midfield kind of price brackets, there are a lot of options as compared to the kind of premium ranges where a lot of the more expensive midfielders aren't performing. And I think now also begs the question of whether we should kind of take the money out of the midfield and put it into the forward positions where players like Watkins are firing and other slightly more expensive forwards are doing well like Solanke. So I think it's a decent enough consideration here. So I think maybe downgrading Eze could be a way to go if you want to put your funds up in the forward positions. If not, I think even at this kind of a price range, there are a lot of good other midfield assets to go for. So if I was in a position where I had Ebrigi Eze in game week 7, I don't think he is an urgent sell still, but I can see why people would lose patience and sell, and I think there are good options as well. So looking at one of the more standout budget midfield options that have come to light of late, it's Dwight McNeil coming off 2 goals against Crystal Palace in game week 6. Already 125k transfers in, and I do expect that he will see a price rise even before the game week 7 deadline. So what I do like about Dwight McNeil is him being very, very nailed. I've had a look at the minutes that he's had in the first 6 game weeks. He started every single game. And I think he's also having many different routes to points in that he is on majority of the set pieces for Everton. And Everton obviously do have a good number of set piece threats in Tarkowski, for example, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. In which case, when he takes these set pieces and aims for these kind of real aerial threats, there's always a good chance of getting an assist. So good to have different routes to returns for Dwight McNeil. Aside from that, his threat from open play is pretty decent as well. He's taken a good number of shots so far. A good chunk of that has come in the box. So 7 shots out of the 11 shots he's taken have all come in the box. And actually, in terms of the goals that he's gotten, all 3 goals, it's come from open play. So I think decent enough attacking threat there. And I look at the fixtures that he has moving forward. It's Newcastle at home. Could be slightly difficult, but that's at home, and Newcastle generally struggle away from home. Then it's Ipswich, Fulham, Southampton, and West Ham. So we know the Everton fixture run is really good, and for this kind of a price range, I think there is good value in going for Dwight McNeil. Just a bit of a caveat, and what I would say about him is I don't expect him to continue returning at the rate he's been returning, because I look at the expected goal numbers, they actually have not been very convincing in that he's not gotten very quality chances. It's 0.50 expected goals, and he's got 3 goals. So I think it's a huge overperformance there, in which case I honestly don't think he keeps it up. But that said, if I kind of just look at him as an FPL option and what I think he'd be capable of moving forward with what he offers, the appeal of set pieces, the occasional threat from open play, I still think overall as a package that is worth the 5.5 million that we're paying for him. And at the end of the day, because he's so cheap, say for example he drops off in performances later down the line, we could very well bench him as well. Benching Dwight McNeil is similar to benching Rodgers that many people did in game week 6, like myself as well, or even benching Smith Rowe, for example. Like, he's at that kind of a price range where you wouldn't be too concerned about having to bench in some game weeks, but obviously when there are good fixtures like Ipswich and Southampton moving forward, that you don't mind playing Dwight McNeil. So I think he's a good option to go for at that 5.5 million bracket, and also someone I'd be looking at if I'm looking at the kind of cheaper regions as well. Let me know what you think of Dwight McNeil. Would you be going for him? And if you're on a game week 7 wildcard, I think it'd be tempting to have him as the enabler of choice instead of the other options like Semenyo, for example. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Let's have a look at the last player. So the last player I have in today's video is Gvardiol, coming off a goal in game week 6. And looking forward as well, he has really good fixtures. So I want to speak about the Man City fixtures first before talking about Gvardiol as an option. From game week 7 onwards, it's Fulham, Wolves, Southampton, Bournemouth and Brighton. So it's a really good run of fixtures. And it obviously begs the question, is it time for us to look for more City assets aside from Erling Haaland? And I would actually say that Gvardiol is the second best Man City asset to own now at this point in time. And what has changed so far from game week 6 to now in game week 7 is that we've seen Gvardiol play in the advanced positions that he kind of did towards the end of last season and was getting so many returns. So I really liked what I was seeing from him against Newcastle, but I think that largely came down to the fact that Rico Lewis was playing in midfield beside Kovacic, and Kyle Walker was playing right back. So usually when that happens and when Kyle Walker is in the team, he enables Gvardiol to be advanced and be very close to the goal and get the attacking returns that we know he's capable of getting. So that is the main thing that has changed so far, that I think Pep is willing to experiment with a kind of a setup that has Rico Lewis, Gvardiol and Kyle Walker in the team, in which case if we see Gvardiol consistently playing in this advanced position, I think he's well worth the 5.9 million that we would be paying for him. Now, as compared to kind of Rico Lewis, just to draw a bit of comparisons now, because Rico Lewis is the one in my own team, I still think Rico Lewis is very advanced, but I think the main difference between Gvardiol and Rico Lewis is that when I look at the permutations or setups that Man City can go for in the defense or in the defensive midfield region, I see more of those setups, including Gvardiol, than Rico Lewis, because Rico Lewis is slightly more dispensable, I feel, in terms of him not having really good defensive capabilities but having greater attacking attributes. So I think Gvardiol's position in the team, or expected minutes if you'd like to call it that, is much more secure, in which case is the main reason why I think he's the best City asset to own now aside from Erling Haaland. If I could rewind the clock now, I'd probably go for Gvardiol. But the main thing I didn't have at that point in time is the information that Pep was willing to experiment and have it in such a way that Gvardiol could go in and play in a very advanced position again and still include Rico Lewis in the midfield and then Kyle Walker on the right. Now, to speak a little bit more to those group of people out there who already have Haaland as well as Rico Lewis, I think if you go for Gvardiol, assuming you don't sell Lewis for Gvardiol and you sell, for example, Trent down to a Gvardiol, I think you have to bear in mind of what that does as well. It essentially locks in your triple City, and if further down the line you want to go for Foden, for example, if he becomes an option, or Kevin De Bruyne, for example, or Savinho if he gets consistent starts, then you essentially need to use two transfers, one to potentially remove Rico Lewis and then get that City midfielder as your second transfer. So something to bear in mind. But then again, when I look at the fixtures as well, could we go with double Man City defense for the foreseeable future? I think it's a viable thing that we can consider. The only thing I would say is Man City's clean sheets have been few and far between this season. Somehow they always seem to concede a goal, whether it is slightly tougher opposition or easy oppositions, they still somehow concede. So I think that is something that is concerning for me if I do go for double City defense, and that is, I guess, something that's holding me back from going for Gvardiol and selling Trent. I also think that because there's so many setups that Pep can go for, that Gvardiol playing in an advanced position is not 100% going to be the case. That there will be setups where Gvardiol again reverts back to what we saw from game weeks 1 to game weeks 5, where he was playing pretty defensively and not going forward as much. So I think there is a slight element of risk there in the positions or the role that he plays based on the setups. But aside from that, because we don't have enough information on that and there's just so much uncertainty there, I'd just be alright to just back Gvardiol at 5.9 million with the fixtures that they have, hoping the clean sheets come and his expected minutes being better than Rico Lewis. And then if he plays in the advanced position that we want, then we've hit the jackpot basically, and you just be hoping for attacking returns there. So let me know what you think about Gvardiol in the comments down below. If not, that's all we have for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed it and found some use in it. Please do drop a like if you found it helpful, and also subscribe as well, as we are on the way to 10,000 subscribers. It'd be incredible if you could get there very, very soon. If not, I will see you guys in more Game Week 7 content coming tomorrow. Bye bye.